So maybe you have a dog grooming business and you have a cute little puppy inside a circle and it says something like Joe's Dog Grooming, and anyway, that would be, you know, the dog would have to be interesting enough to be rememberable, and the text would have to be readable, and then the whole image is relevant to the type of business, so it engages them and reminds them of the type of business that you are. So those are some tips about logos, but the logo is minimalistic on a web page. It goes in the top left-hand corner. It's probably the best place for it. I have seen it in other locations. It's not the only location you can display a logo, but just to get it out of the way and to put it in the subconscious. Then to the right of that is an area that I like to leave for secondary things, even though it's in the top middle of the page. And by the way, people read from left to right, so you already know that. So you don't want, generally speaking, you want to put your most important things on a page starting from the top left-hand corner and then working down, because that's where people are trained to read from. I know I just told you to put your logo there and that it wasn't important, but that's why you put a small logo there. Generally, people just kind of blank out that very top area, and the reason why is the area immediately to the right of where I'm suggesting you put your logo is an area that is typically reserved for what's called banner blindness. Banner blindness is an area that people don't recognize consciously because they're so used to seeing an advertisement there, and there are so many advertisements across each website that go in the middle top section of the page. So that area really should be something secondary. And going from there, let's talk about your color scheme, because your color scheme, one, should match your logo. You should have a consistent color scheme across your entire marketing effort. So all your business cards, your brochures, car magnets, you know, anything that's any ads that you display in publications, you should try to match the theme with your logo and the color scheme. So let's talk about colors for a minute. Every color in the world has a subconscious, triggers a subconscious thought process or feeling inside people. There's been a number of studies that show this, and you can look them up online if you want to know more about them, or if you want to see some very specific reactions that people generate to certain colors. But generally speaking, on the web, you don't want to use any color that is difficult to read, because you're looking at the screen, it should be readable, and we'll get into some very powerful information about creating a very readable website shortly. But for the time being, just concerning colors, black text on a white background is very readable, so that's a good choice anytime that you're creating something. White text on a black background is more difficult to read, but it's not the worst. But in all cases, you pretty much want to avoid the color yellow. Yellow really isn't readable on a white background or a black background or any background in between. In fact, for the web, yellow is just a terrible color. If you have yellow in your logo, I suggest that you tweak it a little bit and make it more of a gold tone or more of a mustard color, so that it has a little bit more contrast between the backdrop of most screens. So anyway, what do the colors mean? Well, white means purity. So purity is good when it comes to the web, because if you're on a site and it's all white, it's going to make you think purity. Purity is correlates with innocence, and you don't want people thinking that you're a scam. And if you make your background black and everything seems dark and dreary, then it tends to trigger emotions and reactions in human beings that make them think that you're shady or scam or something like that. So you want to try to avoid those types of looks. I generally try to keep it light and bright when selling on the internet. If you're trying to, I know a lot of photographers that have websites. If you're doing a lot of photos look great with a black backdrop because it's high contrast. And I understand that there are some good uses for the color of black, so I actually really enjoy enjoy the color black, and I think it makes for a beautiful looking website, but if I'm selling products specifically, I think white is a better choice for a backdrop. So what does black mean? Well, I just said black is a little bit more, it's actually authoritative is the word that describes black. So black doesn't necessarily mean bad, it's just that it communicates authority. So there's a lot of times where you want to communicate authority in your marketing efforts, and those are the times to use black. Now, a much better color to contrast your white on the web is blue, like a dark blue, a navy blue, because then you have some of the authoritative aspects of black, but you also have the loyalty aspects of blue. People tend to think of blue as being a loyal color. It's a cool color, so people, if you're trying to communicate that something is cold or cool, then blue is a good color. If you're trying to communicate that something is soft, then like a lighter blue is a good color. Blue is really good for building trust on the web because of the loyalty factor. So you'll notice that a lot of the big websites that sell things are primarily a white background with black text and blue highlights or blue, a little bit of blue mixed in, like Amazon.com. If you look, you'll see their site is pretty much as I just described, and then they have a little bit of gold in there with their logo, which I talked about earlier. And anyway, same with eBay. I mean, they all have a little bit of gold. Yellows and golds, I said they're basically not good on the web, yellows. But gold or a little bit more contrast, the real light yellows are really hard to see and really hard to read, but gold is good for call to action buttons because they stick out. It draws attention. You know, it's like a highlighter. But let's talk about red, because red also sticks out, but red creates the feelings in the feeling in a person that there may be an emergency. So you want to be careful about red. You do want to use it because it's an eye grabber, it's an attention getter, but you don't want to use it too much because you don't want that to be, you don't want it to say there's an emergency or there's an alarm, or you don't want to agitate people. Red tends to be an agitating color. That's why when you see all the bullfighting, the bullfighter will wave a red flag or a red sheet or whatever in front of the bull, and he'll charge that because red is an attention getter and it's an agitator. Now, there are times when in your marketing efforts you want people to feel like it's an alert or an emergency. I know I've built some pages where I wanted people to take a specific action, so I made the call to action very red, and I said the words warning because people are used to looking at signs, and that's a whole nother topic about design, but people are used to reading signs on the freeway, signs when they're out and about. So anything you can do to kind of play off of signs will help drive specific actions as well. So for example, I used the word warning in all caps and red in the past because I really wanted to grab somebody's attention, and then I had a authoritative, black text that explained why they must act now or something, like that, and that works pretty well for grabbing attention. Some of this stuff, you may think, hey, that's cheesy or whatever. I wouldn't go for that, but the truth is that a lot of people just aren't even going to notice your text if you don't do something to grab their attention. And again, if it's not read and if it's not consumed, then it's pointless. I mean, nobody's going to buy something that they don't know anything about. So, red, agitation, alerts, emergencies. Green is typically very environmental. It's also very health conscious. Green is also a color that's used to induce calmness. It's relaxing. It's a relaxing color. The WebStarts logo is green because I knew that building websites could be frustrating, and I wanted to relax people when they were thinking about building their websites. And if they think about WebStarts, I want them to be relaxed. I don't want them to be agitated. Had I made the logo red, then that could have induced feelings of agitation, which they already know that it's a frustrating process, so it's just running my own clients away. Orange is another alert color. It's a warm color. I forgot to mention green is in the cool color family too. Purples are in the cool color family. I think it's pretty self-explanatory if you think about it. But orange is another kind of draw alert to color, but it can be good for call to action buttons, things like that. It's got more contrast in the yellow when put on a white background or a black background, so it can be used in a very nice way. And then, brown is an earth tone. Brown and green, those are a couple of the earth tones, but brown's more of a warm earth tone. And I wouldn't use brown unless I was really trying to convey something as being like tough, leathery, earthy, something like that. So if that's part of your message, then brown is great. If not, I'd probably just stay away from brown because it's generally the least pretty of the colors. And, we can go into that later, but you do want to have a good looking website. So I don't recommend using brown. So that pretty much covers everything, I guess, other than silvers and grays, which that's a nice contrast between white and black, and don't be afraid to use those. I like a real light gray in a lot of the things I do. It really softens up the look of a page and makes it look a little bit more, it adds some depth if you put a gradient on it. And a gradient means like just the slow fade from one color to another. So that's pretty much covers everything that you need to know about your color scheme. So that color scheme, again, should match the logo and all your documentation or marketing efforts that you're making.